Welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of vertebrate anatomy by exploring the axial and appendicular skeleton. Imagine trying to build a towering skyscraper without a steel core, or a crane without a sturdy base. It simply would not work. Our bodies, and the bodies of all vertebrates, rely on a beautifully engineered framework of bones to stand tall, move fast, and survive. By the end of this lecture, you will understand not just what these bones are, but the incredible physics and evolutionary design behind how they function. Let us get started. To begin, let us look at the axial skeleton. Think of this as the central steel core of our biological skyscraper. It forms the main longitudinal axis running right down the center of a vertebrate's body. This system includes the skull, the vertebral column, or spine, the ribs, and the sternum. Why does this matter? Because without this central chassis, the rest of the body would have nothing to build upon. It keeps the animal upright, secure, and provides the essential structural integrity needed to resist gravity. Every other part of the body ultimately anchors back to this central pillar. Now that we know what the axial skeleton is, we must understand its life-saving functions. First and foremost, it acts as an impenetrable vault. Your skull and rib cage protect your most vital organs, like the brain, heart, and lungs, from fatal impacts. Second, it provides a crucial anchor point. The powerful muscles of your back and limbs attach here, allowing for controlled movement. Without it, we would be formless blobs. Furthermore, in aquatic vertebrates like fishes, the axial skeleton is not just for support, it is the primary engine for swimming. By creating lateral undulations along the spine, fishes can powerfully push through the water. This brings us to how we actually measure and compare these central pillars across different species. Biologists use a mathematical representation called the vertebral formula. Conceptually, this formula is just a standardized shorthand that breaks the spine down into its distinct anatomical regions. The formula states that VT, the total number of vertebrae, equals C plus T plus L plus S plus CA. In plain English, C stands for the cervical or neck vertebrae. T is for the thoracic or chest vertebrae. L represents the lumbar or lower back vertebrae. S stands for the sacral or pelvic vertebrae. And CA represents the caudal or tail vertebrae. If the caudal value increases, the animal has a longer tail, like a monkey. If the total remains constant, but the neck is long, like in a giraffe, the individual bones are simply elongated. Let us see this formula in action with a concrete example. Suppose a biology student is examining a human skeleton and needs to determine the total number of vertebrae to compare it with a domestic dog. We are given the specific bone counts for each region: 7 cervical, 12 thoracic, 5 lumbar, 5 sacral, and 4 caudal vertebrae. We choose the vertebral formula because it allows us to mathematically combine these regional segments into a single quantitative value. We substitute our given numbers directly into the equation, adding 7, 12, 5, 5, and 4. This step-by-step addition ensures no region is left out. Our final answer is 33. Physically, this tells us exactly how the human spine is segmented to balance flexibility and support for upright bipedal walking. Now that we have calculated the vertebrae, let us look at how this actually appears in a living animal. Here, you are seeing the skeleton of a dog. Notice the structures highlighted in blue. This is the entire axial skeleton. Starting from the left, we have the skull protecting the brain. Moving to the right, you can see the cervical vertebrae in the neck, followed by the thoracic vertebrae, which connect to the rib cage. Further back are the lumbar vertebrae, the sacrum at the pelvis, and finally the long string of caudal vertebrae forming the tail. This diagram beautifully illustrates how the axial skeleton serves as the main structural axis, providing a vital foundation upon which all other anatomical systems rely. With the central pillar understood, we must now ask, how does the animal interact with its environment? A central steel core is great for standing tall, but it cannot walk across the street. This is where the appendicular skeleton comes into play. It consists of the bones of the paired appendages and the girdles that attach them to the axial skeleton. Think of the girdles as heavy-duty mounting brackets. The pectoral girdle at the shoulder attaches the front limbs, while the pelvic girdle at the hips attaches the hind limbs. The appendages themselves are highly variable, heavily modified by evolution into the fins of fish, the wings of birds, or the arms and legs of mammals. Why is this appendicular system so heavily modified across species? Because it is the primary anatomical system responsible for locomotion and environmental manipulation. Without it, most vertebrates would be completely immobilized, unable to hunt, escape predators, or migrate. The girdles play a crucial, life-saving role here. When an animal runs or jumps, the limbs generate massive mechanical forces. The girdles transfer these forces directly into the axial skeleton, propelling the entire animal forward. If this system were poorly designed, the sheer force of running would literally tear the limbs away from the body. Therefore, a robust appendicular skeleton is absolutely essential for survival in almost every active vertebrate species. To truly understand how these limbs function, we must look at the physics of levers. Biologists evaluate limb performance by calculating the mechanical advantage, or MA. Conceptually, this mathematical ratio determines whether a limb is evolutionarily built for high speed or for brute power. The formula is MA equals L in divided by L out. Let us break down these symbols. MA is the mechanical advantage, a unitless ratio describing force multiplication. L in is the in-lever length, which is the physical distance from the joint to where the muscle attaches to the bone. L out is the out-lever length, the distance from the joint to the end of the limb, where it pushes against the ground. If L in increases, the limb produces massive force but moves slowly. If L out increases, the limb produces less force but moves incredibly fast. Let us apply this formula to a real-world example. We're studying the forelimb of a cheetah, an animal famous for its incredible running speed. We're given an in-lever muscle attachment distance of 2 centimeters and a total out-lever limb length of 20 centimeters. We need to calculate the mechanical advantage to prove why its skeleton behaves this way. We choose the MA formula to quantify its biomechanical output. Substituting our given values, we divide 2 by 20. This gives us a final answer of 0.1. Physically, this very low fraction means the muscle has to pull with a lot of force, but the end of the foot will swing through a massive distance very rapidly. This low mechanical advantage is the evolutionary secret to the cheetah's high-speed running ability. Now, let us contrast the cheetah with an armadillo, which is a powerful digger. For the armadillo, we are given an in-lever distance of 4 centimeters and an out-lever limb length of 12 centimeters. Again, we are asked to find the mechanical advantage. We use the exact same formula, dividing the in-lever by the out-lever. Substituting the values, we divide 4 by 12. Our final answer is 0.33. Notice that this value is more than 3 times higher than that of the cheetah. Physically, this means the armadillo's appendicular skeleton sacrifices speed to generate immense output force at the claws. This high mechanical advantage perfectly adapts the animal for tearing through hard, compacted soil. To visualize the math we just performed, let us look at this diagram of limb lever mechanics. Here, you are seeing a schematic of a vertebrate forelimb. The triangle at the joint represents the fulcrum, the pivot point of our lever. Notice the short arrow labeled L in. This is the small distance where the muscle applies its pulling force. Now look at the much longer arrow labeled L out, extending all the way to the foot where it strikes the ground. This diagram clearly teaches us how the appendicular skeleton transforms a stationary central axis into a dynamic moving machine. By tweaking the lengths of these two levers, evolution dictates whether an animal will be a high-speed runner or a powerful digger. We have covered a tremendous amount of ground today, so let us review our key takeaways. First, we learned that the axial skeleton acts as the central pillar of the body, providing crucial protection for the brain and spinal cord while anchoring the muscles. Second, we saw how the vertebral formula allows us to mathematically quantify and compare the regional composition of the spine across species. Third, we explored the appendicular skeleton, the system of girdles and limbs that transforms vertebrates into dynamic, moving machines. Finally, we used the physics of mechanical advantage to prove how limb proportions dictate an animal's survival strategy, balancing speed against brute force. You now have a solid understanding of the framework of vertebrates. Excellent work today.